Coming to you live from the JRE Tobacco Aladino Mobile Studios, it's the Cigar Pulpit.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another sermon from the Cigar Pulpit. I'm the Bishop of the Burn, Nick, and with me today, we have Dan the Man Ponder of Rivermen Cigar Company. How you doing, Dan?
Doing great, Nick. How you doing?
Doing all right. So today this is now post-Christmas, or at least that's when this episode's coming out. It's actually being recorded just prior to Christmas, but the magic of podcasting, we can put this out whenever we want. So,
yeah, right at the eve before the eve of Christmas.
I had somebody tell me that this is the Christmas Adam.
Okay.
Because Adam comes before Eve. So
a lot more clever than I am.
I'd never heard that before, and it threw me off. I got the message. It was, saying, Merry Christmas, Adam. And I'm like, did this go to the right person? And it's like, whatever. Anyway. So we're hanging out here at the Rivermen Cigar Company, and you got a couple of people here in the lounge. It's not, completely dead. I would have thought today with the weather that swung through St. Louis that we might have, been flying solo, but you've got some people that brave the weather, and that's great.
Boy, it's really been cold around here. I mean, I think it's like a 30-year before it's been this cold, and it's just so frigid, and it's great to see people in the lounge and having a place to smoke. I don't know. I would take absolutely a brave soul to be smoking a cigar outside today.
I tried the ice tent last night during the storm, and when I tried it, temperature-wise, it was -5, but with the wind chill, it was -30.
Yeah, that's a good test for the tent.
And I turned the heater on about 90 minutes before I went out there.
Okay.
So, that thing, it was running for a while. But even with the heater running for 90 minutes, all the windows sealed up, the fans off. So it was a hot box, right? I could only stand to smoke one quick cigar, and then I had to go inside because I could keep my core warm, but like my hands were, I just could not get the warmth back in my hands, and I had to have the heater close to me. And so what I was starting to get that uncomfortable tingle in my legs, of having the space heater too close. So I'm getting like space heater burns on my shins, and everything. So I'm like, yeah, we need to go ahead and say that this is past the line.
Well, you beat my record. I was -3, and I always thought that was quite a cold night. And but those tents are amazing, and to be out there at -5 and you got to be the only guy in the entire city, or maybe in the entire Midwest, that was out there smoking a cigar in -5 outside. That's quite a record.
-5 wouldn't be so bad if it weren't for the wind.
I know.
That wind was the killer part, and I think...
Does it go through the tent, Nick? Can you feel like if it's 50 miles an hour coming at you, does it feel like 10 miles an hour? Did you get a breeze in there?
I didn't get a breeze in there, but the tent was rocking, not in a good kind of happy way.
Stability issues.
It was a thing. The wind was blowing it around, and so it just ambiently was just too cold.
Yeah.
It was just way too cold.
The other night when you stopped by a couple of days ago, I was worried about you getting out of the tent and making that 5-foot crawl from there, and you fall and you hit your head and you're gone. There's no more Nick.
I was on the phone with Jeff actually at the time when I was going back inside, and I told him that you had said that, And
it's always been my concern.
And he's like, that actually makes a lot of sense. So yeah.
I was doing that when when my mom was around, and she'd come to the back door, and I'd always face my my tent door at my mom, so she'd come to the back door and knock, and then I'd get up and go in there and see what she needed. And I was always worried, like, what happens if I slip and fall? And it's not a big deal in dry weather, but as soon as you get that sheet of ice on there, I've come close to, like, your ligaments are going in the wrong direction. You're about to do a split, and my body doesn't do a split, and I'm like, I hit my head. Next thing you know, I'm laying there, and if it's cold weather, you're a goner.
Oh, for sure. Well, and just on my way here, I stopped because I had a tire pressure light come on in my car. I'm outside however long to put some air in my tire, right? So I stop at the gas station to put some free air in my tire, and it's a metal kind of tip on that air, hose and stuff. So I'm holding that against the little thing, and just in the short period of time I'm out there with the wind hitting, you could have told me that I had frostbite in these fingers, and I 100% believed you. It took forever and they still kind of hurt. Like right now, as I'm sitting here, it's like
it is so cold out there.
It was just so cold.
I heard today like 171 million people is being affected, and what is there, 325 in the U.S. So I mean, you're talking about over half the people in the U.S. are going through this. So some of the people that are out there listening they're experieing their own cold weather smoking issues.
Exactly.
Did you want to introduce the third person that's with us here today?
I will let you introduce the third person that's with us here today.
Well, we also have a third person. I know you usually do the show at 2, but we had another person that wanted to join today, and hopefully that's okay.
It's fine with me. He's pretty quiet.
Sam, my mom's dog, Maltese, and Sam's been hanging out here at the shop. He's 13 to 15 years old. He was a great companion for our mother. Our beloved mother passed away in January, and he's been here. Cindy's taken a liking to him. The guys have taken a liking to him. We got guys that never wanted to get a dog, like Bob. Cindy tells me Bob, never wanted to get a dog. He's seen Sam. He's now back home talking to his wife going, we need another dog. Comes up there and says hello to everybody. And so he's been a good addition to the shop. And he wanted to sit on this, world famous podcast that you and Jeff have put together over the last few years, working your tail off. And he's been talking to me about it for a long time. And you were kind enough to let him sit in on today.
He's pretty chill. So, we're fine. We're good.
13 to 15 years old. So 91 to 105 or whatever dog years.
Whatever that happens to be. So today we're smoking a cigar that you picked out. And this is one I can safely say I haven't had it.
Oh, well, good. Great.
So this is definitely going to be something. This is going to be a new treat.
Very nice.
So we have the Opus X. It is the Oro Oscuro Double Robusto, 5 3/4 by 54.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And according to the notes that you sent me here, this is a Dominican Puro. And the description says that it's an invigorating yet balanced smoke with notes of sweetness, vanilla, and spice. This all Dominican Puro sports a delicious dark chocolatey Maduro wrapper that has been specifically fermented and specially fermented and aged. The tobacco used to make this memorable stick is grown at Chateau Fuente. The Arturo Fuente Opus X Oro Oscuro Double Robusto is handmade in the Dominican Republic. And it's a pretty limited cigar, but you have it here in the case at Rivermen Cigar Company, available for people to purchase.
That's right, and we were blessed with a cachet of Opus. It's that time of the year, and we get our allocation, and oh my God, that allocation this year has been off the charts. We have, I think, 5 or 6 boxes of Opus right now. I had a gentleman come in earlier, friend of ours, and said, you didn't post the Opus on the Instagram. I was like, well, it's kind of the holidays, and I was letting the guys that walk in here get a shot at it, and so we'll probably get something posted here soon. But yeah, I mean, some rarest. I mean, first of all, Opus is very rare.
Yeah,
and secondly, we've got the rare of the rare. Opus coming in, so we're pretty excited about it.
Well,
so I figured we'd smoke one here. I was gonna take it out of the wrapper like Jeff does, but I don't know if it's copyrighted or what, and I certainly want to infringe on any copyright issues or anything like that, so I'm just going to toss mine over here in the trash.
I appreciate you doing that in a very quiet manner. So
I know Dave and I think Mr. Jonathan and others have tried to do it, but nobody does it like Jeff. No disrespect to our friends and colleagues up in New England, but I mean, nobody does it like Jeff.
It's true. Nobody can just pluck on that last nerve of mine like a cello string like Jeff does.
And then when video came out, it was like the whole pulpit world realized what it was all about, and it took a little bit of the mystery away from it. We were just listening to it on radio, on audio.
Slightly. And speaking of Jeff, I don't want to get into it, but Jeff was, he's had a very busy period of time here in the last, let's just go so far as to say, not quite 24 hours. Let's say 18 hours or so. So it's his news. If he wants to share, I'm not going to share it. But he's had a rough go. So guys, as you're listening to this, just keep Jeff in your thoughts. He's got some shit going on.
Yeah.
So
now he's safe health wise.
Oh yes, no, it's not a health thing. He's safe. Everybody else is safe. There's no injuries. There's no don't have to issues.
But he is experiencing an issue that our thoughts and prayers are appropriate to be with him at this time.
It's a very complicated situation, potentially complicated situation. So
yes.
Anyway, well, why don't we go ahead and cut the cigar? And the official cutting is brought to you by Dan the Man Ponder at Rivermen Cigar Company. We're all sitting here at Rivermen, and we've got a nice group of people hanging out, having a good time. And what we're going to be discussing today is the importance of brick and mortar shops, and we're going to be discussing kind of this post-Christmas first quarter of the year for brick and mortar shops, and kind of how difficult it is for those brick and mortar shops. And so, I think it's so great that on a stupid cold, snowy day, you've got people hanging out and everything. But that right there encapsulates the importance of not just brick and mortar shops, but the Rivermen Cigar Company, and that you're offering that refuge for guys like us that want to come out and have a cigar today.
Yeah. And everybody that came in today was just saying, hey, can I come in? Absolutely. And it's just too cold to smoke outside. I said, guys, brother, we really appreciate that. But thanks for coming in. We're glad to have all these guys, our friends, our old friends and our new friends. And it's great. I was here a couple hours ago when we opened up, and a few hours ago, and it was pretty quiet all day. You come in with the video equipment, and we set up, and next thing you know, we get quite a few people in the lounge, so it's wonderful.
Well, I can't take credit for that.
Live studio.
There we go. But, guys, if you're in the St. Louis area, swing on by the Rivermen Cigar Company in Crestwood, Missouri. And if you're not in the St. Louis area, do remember that Dan does do mail orders, so you can give us a call here at the shop, place an order for individual cigars, boxes, accessories, all kinds of fun stuff, and it'll get shipped out to you right away. That's Rivermen Cigar Company of Crestwood, Missouri. And with that, it's time to go ahead and cut the cigar.
Nick, I almost prematurely cut this cigar 4 or 5 different times.
You almost just pulled a Jeff there.
Yeah, exactly. I hear him always talking about doing it. It's not that easy to sit here as you're going through the spiel, and I get to a part, and I'm like, ready to cut, and then you launch into a whole nother segue, and then I'm ready to cut, and you launch into another one, and then I'm ready to cut. But I appreciate it, by you extending it and going on and talking about, and I guess it's got to do with the sign of the times. There is a lot happening right now.
There is a lot going on.
With end of the year, and even in the cigar world, in the retail world, and things like that. So I caught myself like 4 or 5 times trying to cut the darn thing.
That's funny. So let's do cold draw on this, because I'm really curious here, because based off the description they were saying sweetness and a couple other things, and so I'm just curious here. What is that? It's not necessarily sweet per se. I mean,
there's a.
I don't know exactly what that. I was saying vanilla and spice, sweetness, vanilla and spice. But
I'm getting a very non-pronounced, kind of like a barnyard. I mean, it's not a like.
It's not hay.
Yeah, and it's not overpowering, but
yeah, barnyard probably. On the cold draw, barnyard is probably the closest.
A smooth, elegant barnyard. I mean, it's not like your run-of-the-mill uncle's barnyard. I mean, cold draw.
Nice,
and I tried to do a retrohale in honor of Jeff as we're thinking about him today, and I get even a little smoother version of it.
I was gonna say it's there, but it's just.
What do you think? Fire it up?
That barnyard. Oh yeah, I'm firing this up. I can't wait.
Now, I've never had one of these.
Oh, really? So neither one of us have had one of these.
And I'm really looking forward to it.
All right, then.
Gentleman earlier grabbed one, and is that the one? Is it the one you're smoking right now? Yeah. Wonderful. Got one of the guys in the lounge that fired one of these up. They're
all right then.
They're not. How you guys doing? They're not.
Somebody smoking along with us here.
Yeah. they're a little steep on the price, but it's 'tis the season, as was said earlier, and it's that time of the year.
Hey, you gotta spoil yourself once in a while. And
I think I've mentioned this before when I've sat down with you, Nick. But I hear a lot of people say, "Oh gosh, I'm never going to spend $30 for a cigar." And I get that, but my take on it's a little bit differently, and that is, what in the world can I afford that the King of England, the King of Spain, the His Highnesses and the Sheikhs over there, the guy World Cup, the Emir of Qatar. I mean, I couldn't drink the same kind of whiskey. I can't, even imagine the caviar. I can't.
Yeah.
Not that I've ever eaten caviar in my life. I can't. Hold on, John.
Oh, that was John.
That was John right there. Walked right in front of the audio.
You're all right.
You're all right, John. But that's okay. And I couldn't imagine any of the luxuries of life. Like I went to this place in Singapore. I was working in Singapore, and we're getting a full house here, Nick.
We are.
I went to this place in Singapore on working and helping them with a waste management plan. And I went into this bar, or into this cigar lounge that was called, I think Old Cuban, I think is what it was called. It was in Chinatown.
Okay.
And there was a menu there. And if I'm not mistaken, it's the first time I was nervous about ordering off a menu. I mean, there was I think $250 glasses of whiskey.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's an ice cube in a finger or two.
Yeah.
And I remember, and there was a Chinese gal that came over and took the order, and it was 4 stories, and it was a former opium den back 100 years ago or 100 something.
Yeah.
And I was looking at it, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm nervous, and I was like, okay, and I settled for a $25 glass of rum from wherever. And so I know there's expensive liquors out there. I know there's expensive whiskeys, but this is the same thing that movie star would be smoking or whatever. And for $20 more than you typically spend for a $10 cigar, why not once a year, once every 5 years, once every 10 years? So when someone says, I'm never going to do that, I think never's a long time. Maybe reconsider. Look, I'm not trying to sell these because these are going to be gone by tomorrow or the next day anyway. So I'm trying to do more of a PSA than try to sell these things.
Oh, I get it.
I'm going to take a puff, Nick.
I get it. I mean, there's some price points that I just I do hesitate hard that it's when you're talking the $90, $100 kind of cigars that are out there and everything, that's when I'm like, oh man, it's got to be one hell of a special occasion for me to want to drop that.
But I really, and these are, believe it or not, online. I see some of the cigars in our cabinet that we have for $30. I see them $99 online.
Yeah,
per stick.
Yeah,
at brick and mortars.
Yeah,
that have an online thing. So. People do jack these things up. We don't do that, but people do, jack these things up. So I just don't think I kind of almost dismiss the $100 cigar. It's really, I just don't know if, unless you're doing an extremely limited quantity, I just don't know that a major cigar manufacturer, like the top 10 or 20, I don't even know if they could spend $100 to make a cigar, in a relatively large limited quantity.
Exactly. I guess that's the thing, is that you're going to be very hard pressed to convince me that a cigar that costs $100 is that much exponentially better than a cigar that's costing $30, $25, even maybe $20, I don't know. I mean, we've talked about it before. The difference between a $5 and $10 cigar, is significant versus the difference between a $10 and $20 cigar is less significant.
Not as significant,
not
right?
as significant. Yeah, exactly. And that's where I'm coming at it and saying the difference between a $20 and a $100 cigar. Boy, I don't know what the difference there is, but anyway.
I get that. That's a little bit on the high end. What are you getting a little bit, Nick, on this thing? Definitely an Oscuro.
Just did the retro hail. That's what I was going for there. And the retro hail.
You didn't cough.
I didn't. It's very smooth. There is a little spice to it, and everything, but it's really good. It's a really, really good cigar. This cigar in general, it's smoking really smooth, and I'm trying to like slow down my smoking because I don't want to like just blow through it, and everything. I'm trying to take it a little slower, but no, it's very, very good.
For your guys out there that are whiskey people, and I tended bar Fridays back in the day and had to learn 500 drinks and all that stuff, but it wasn't this bourbon craze that there is right now. I mean, and but I do know that when I drink a really good whiskey, Scotch, bourbon, every once in a while, not very often, I get the good stuff. Is one of the biggest compliments you can pay on it is how smooth it is.
Yeah.
And I think what you just said right there, correct me if I'm wrong, but what you just said right there regarding this is this is a well blended, a very flavorful cigar, but the smoothness is I mean, it has it's taken it up to a next level.
It is. No.
And I think to that end, you did not cough and heave and maybe, move a lung upward towards your mouth a little bit with this thing. I mean,
it was a
smooth retro,
very easy retro hail there. So, well, very cool. Well, Dan, so I wanted to have you on today. Like I said, this is the time of year for brick and mortar shops that I think historically for most of them, I mean, obviously down in Florida where it's nice all year long and everything like that, they may not see this kind of downswing. But for a lot of the country, this is the time of the year that it really starts to slow down a little bit in the brick and mortar shops.
Yeah, it does. Now we're going to go find probably, and I think I talked to Mickey Pegg when he was here earlier at the event in May that you guys were at, and I said, hey, Mickey, when I met you at Ron's shop at Sirius Cigar down in Houston, I mean, how many retailers were out there? And he said, this is like 15 years ago. He's like, is when I met Mickey, when he was with CAO, the VP, and he said about 2,000.
Okay.
So there's 4,000 or more right now. You kind of get that from PCA numbers and stuff like that. So we've kind of doubled in the last 15 years with regards to these kind of places, brick and mortar. And we're not all the same. Some have liquor license, some don't. Some are have a lounge, some don't. But just a few chairs. Some have more of an established lounge like we have. And so I was asking him about that. And so I think what's happening is that as it relates to more like there's more of these shops available. I think we've also had an increase in customers as well. I mean, in terms of overall the entire country.
Yeah.
So things go pretty strong until the end of the year. January is a rough month. It's probably in the smaller business. So out of those 4,000, I just remembered my thought. I kind of drifted on you a little bit. That's why I was segueing there, but I just remember what I was about to say. Full disclosure to your group out here is that the vast majority of them are small.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, there's probably 10% of that. I don't even know if there's 10%, maybe 5%, maybe 3% of that, of those 4,000 or gigantic that have been around 20 years, that are multi-million dollar stores. And so maybe some of the things that they may do in January and February, they look at it as a time, they may have a different strategy than I would say the 90, 95, 98% of us that are mom and pops that are smaller. And so we're kind of trying to survive through January and February. Yeah. Whereas I think a larger shop uses it as an opportunity to plan, to buy more stuff. Like, for example, I think for us to go out in January when our sales are going to be a third of what they were in the summer, and go ahead and go out and go to a show because it's more convenient and we're not busy. I'm not so sure either us or our colleagues would look at that as such, or similar shop size would look at that as such a great idea, because you're pretty much going to pull money out of your reserves and your savings to go ahead and do that. Also, when it comes to buying like that, we kind of more or less shut it down a bit, which I know is something that the bigger guys are probably looking at taking advantages of the manufacturer because they're offering sales because they're slow. They're being a bit slow as well. And therefore they have more product and they're trying to move it. So,
well, and it makes sense the manufacturers would be slow if, as you're saying, 3/4 of the cigar shops, start slowing it down. Maybe
and that's a guess, Nick.
So estimating if they're slowing down or stopping their buying for, a month or two or something like that, then the manufacturers are going to feel that. So if they're making deals to the bigger guys, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I got a message from the good folks in Tampa, I think their factory, they shut down kind of annually for inventory. They also realize that this is a slower time of the year, and so shut down for a few weeks and things like that to I think give people time off to enjoy the holidays for their workers, to recharge their batteries, to probably do end of the year inventory, to do stuff like that. Again, something you probably wouldn't be doing as a business if it was the busy time of the year when you're pushing product out the door.
Exactly.
So things tend to slow down. I'm not so sure us smaller guys can really take advantage of any kind of a sales and things like that, like January when they are offering you, kind of closeout type, not closeout, but the equivalent of a closeout box store closeout type sale where it'd be some incredible offer. What you're really trying to do is just buy the cigars where you got your regulars that come in and they're smoking a specific cigar, and just kind of circle the wagons a little bit and try to survive January and February. What Cindy tells me, and she's been doing this 18 years, is everybody buys their holiday gifts and a lot of that's on credit cards, and then January the bill comes in. So she says February is absolutely the worst month. Period in this type of retail, and maybe all retail.
I would say I've heard that before for other retail, that like this time of year, a lot of times, not just cigar shops, but just retail in general, it does kind of slow down. There's a lot of heavy spending that takes place, in the latter, to November, December. So those first couple of months of the year tend to be a little slower. But part of one of the things that I wanted to touch on, specifically with you, is that, maybe part of the reason, aside from the fact that maybe you don't have as many bodies coming through the door during that period of time, there's a lot of taxes that come due, at the beginning of the year as well, that, you have to account for.
Yeah, now we're kind of, I think in some states, I think that's absolutely correct. I'm not sure, but for us, I guess we're fortunate that we're a pay-as-you-go, so we don't have, like, you hear stories in the industry. I don't know if they're true or not, but you hear some retail have a floor tax. Mm-hmm. I think Dave even might have mentioned that in Massachusetts or something, like after you get through all the taxation that you have throughout the year. Now at the end of the year, you do your inventory and you owe tax on whatever's left over. We don't have that. We're fortunate in that regard.
That's good.
So whatever we buy this month, we pay taxes next month on the 15th at 10%. In Missouri, some states you hear is 30%. Illinois might be 35%. California, or New York was, I think, in the 70% tax rate. So you do it as you go along. Every month you have a tobacco tax that most of us add that to the price of the cigar, and reclaim it that way. So I think it's a little unfair or not as transparent to have a $10 cigar and then when it gets to the register, it's 11 because you've added your tax, and then there's another sales tax on top of it. Next thing you know, you thought you bought a $10 cigar. When you check out, it's $12.25.
Yeah.
So we added on into the shelf price.
But to your point and to mine is that, given the fact that you're saying that you get, even with it being a pay-as-you-go system, if you spend, let's say, $1,000 on cigars, which, let's be real, buying $1,000 worth of cigars for the shelf, that's That can happen very quickly and very easily without even thinking.
Yeah, without a doubt. That's a lower number for sure per company.
Yeah,
and I think we're dealing with 40 companies.
So let's just hypothetically, just for the sake of numbers, because math is not necessarily my strong suit.
Yeah.
So $1,000 worth of cigars, you now owe $100 in December or in January.
Yeah.
If you bought those in December
by the 15th, and if you don't pay on time, it's a 25% penalty.
Okay. So now you're having to pay that tax in January.
Yes.
On cigars that you bought in December, and you have significantly less people walking through the door because it's cold outside. People can't sit outside and smoke and whatever else. Because that's the other thing, the brick and mortars, as much as we all love the lounges and as many folks as you have chilling out in the lounge
got a great crowd today.
The walk-in traffic is just invaluable for a lounge. And you're going to that seems to be maybe where you lose out in these cold weather months. The walk-in traffic where the guys can't sit out on their deck and have a cigar at the end of the night.
Yeah, it's the golfers, the fishermen, the barbecuers, all those guys. Some of those guys just stop smoking cigars and go into what I call hibernation. And they just stop smoking cigars, and they're gone around Christmas time, and they come back in March, and when the weather comes up. And so that goes, and I think people up in the northern regions, now you got to remember I was down in Texas for 25 years, and there was kind of year-round smoking down there.
Yeah.
Or Florida or California or some of these other places your listeners are at, or around the world where it's warm. It's like, what's this seasonal drop off? Well, we don't have a seasonal drop. Well, it's weather related, right?
Yeah.
And what happens is a lot of times you'll see lounges starting to have shorter hours during the winter. And when I was a customer here, which I started being a customer here about 12 years ago, when I moved back home from Abu Dhabi, and I was like, this makes absolutely no sense. Here I am, engineer, and everything's got to make sense. And I'm going, how can this be? I mean, why? You guys are closing early in the winter. What the heck are you doing? How can you? I mean, we don't have a place to smoke. We need a place to smoke. We come in here. We support you. What's going on? And be honest with you, I almost got thrown out one night about 10 years ago because I was talking, and the person up front that wanted to leave early got upset over the conversation we were having back here, trying to figure it out. We just couldn't figure it out. And then when I bought the shop, I was like, gosh, everybody's like, well, the answer never made sense to me. So then when I took over the shop, I figured it out on my own. I was like, nobody's walking in the front door. Therefore, 70, 80, 90% of your business is not there. It puts more pressure on the people in the lounge to support the lounge. If we're in the summer and people are walking, and I call it the 3-minute drill, people are coming in, getting their cigars, going home, getting their cigars, going home, getting their cigars, going home. We can have one person here till 10 or 11 o'clock at night. We don't really care because people are coming in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. Now all of a sudden, the golfers, the fishermen, the guys smoking in their backyard, they've gone into hibernation, and you got one guy sitting back here till midnight. It puts a lot of stress on the system. So it's kind of a call to arms if you are going to go into a lounge and participate. I know it's very much appreciated in the wintertime to come in and support the place. The place is staying open, giving you a place to smoke in cold weather and things like that. So I think it's something that you can think about, and if you're trying to find a way to maintain your hours, it's like if for example, if this winter, even in January, February, when we're having awful months and we're only doing about a third of the sales. I mean, if we come back here and there's one or two people watching a game for an entire week or two, and nobody's walking in the front door, and we're ending the day and we're not even making enough money to cover our costs that day.
Yeah.
And then some, or half our cost, puts a lot of pressure on the guys a lot of pressure on us to close early to try to survive through the month of January and February. I mean, we are going to survive. There's no doubt about it, because I'm not into failing, but it's just, at some point in time, you got to think a little bit like a business guy.
Yeah. Well, you got to stop the bleed. And that's the thing, is that
you got to do what's prudent.
It's
sustainability, survivability is important. Everybody wants this place to be around. I mean, our good customers want this place to be around after the slowdown. So you got to take some measures occasionally to ensure that, protect that.
And to you can't go so drastic that suddenly you've changed the environment of the shop so much that the folks, you lose your regulars by going so far. Does that make sense? That if you scale back hours so far and everything else, that you kind of lose some of the folks that would have. I don't know if I'm making sense, but you see what I'm saying is that there's a fine line of how far you can take those measures before suddenly you start losing folks that would have understood and hung on.
And I like to watch the games, and I like to stay late. So what we typically do is whoever's working, they just say, "Hey, Dan, I'm heading out," and they head out, and I stay here till the bitter end, and then some, and let them finish. So we don't really ever do anything precipitous, draconian, and people still get to watch their games because I like that. But if I was, but some other shop out there that's actually trying to pay their bills with their personal bills, and I mean I'm still kind of semi-retired, and I'm giving this a little bit of a longer leash in terms of trying to invest in the thing. But if you got bills to pay and stuff like that, and I mean, and you got to run it like a business. I mean, like a business, hardcore. Then you'd be pushing people out of here at 8 o'clock at night, whereas you might stay here till 10 or 11 o'clock because there just ain't anybody here.
Yeah.
But we don't necessarily have to encounter that point that you're trying to make all that much, because a lot of times I'll just stay here late and finish watching the game.
Precisely.
Cindy will go home early, Patrick, whatever, and not early, on time.
Yeah. Now,
but I would kind of, I do think it's kind of important for the listeners to have a sixth sense about that and realize that that particular shop that they go to around the country is actually doing something extra. It's not required that owner stays there.
Oh, for sure.
2.5 more hours to let two people finish watching the game.
Yeah, be a little.
I mean, you got to kind of understand
self-aware.
that okay, the person that worked there during the day, they were going to close at this time, but they're staying over there, and just be appreciative by telling your friends about it, or maybe buying an extra cigar next time you come in, or whatever. Show some form of appreciation. I think that goes a long way to maintaining a sustainable small retail shop.
Definitely. Well, and that's
rather than it's. Obviously, he's staying open because I'm here and I need to finish watching the game. Well, no, not really. Obviously, we should be closing on time early, because it makes no sense to stay here with two guys and finish watching the game.
Hours are posted on the door. If you haven't noticed, nobody's walked in the last 2 hours that they're posted. So now, let's say if the hours posted is 10 o'clock at night and the person's leaving at midnight, and nobody's walked in the door since 8, I mean, that's 4 hours of time that potentially if you're not here, that's 4 hours of time that you're paying an employee to
one of our we have a guy that likes to stay late too, so he'll stay late too, but still getting paid for that, and so
that's a cost. I mean, the electricity, everything else that you've got going on at that point in time. I mean, that's all cost involved. So that, to your point, it's a privilege that for them, it's a privilege that you're affording them to stay open like that. And so, a little bit of self-awareness and appreciation goes a long way.
Yeah, I think that's probably too strong a word for me. What I would just say is just there's a change between warm weather, spring, and cold weather, and the shop is making some adjustments. And when someone is extending their hours, even though it makes no sense from a business, just a simple thank you or an appreciation, or say a few things about the shop when you're out talking to your friends or something. That goes a long way, and that's I think what we're looking at.
So, okay, so that brings me to my next point, which is that brick and mortar shops, and it's not just yours. It's like we're talking about probably the vast majority of cigar shops.
I think thousands is actually what we're talking about.
Yeah, the vast majority of cigar shops This is a time of year that they could use a little bit of extra help, a little bit of extra, consideration and thought. And so, in terms of what cigar smokers can do, because it's easy to say, just buy more cigars. I mean, that's easy to say, but let's be real. Times are tough for everybody. In terms of everybody's budgets, we're coming off the holidays, and as you said, Cindy pointed out, people are paying down credit cards in this period of time and everything like that. It's and with gas prices and this and that and whatever. I mean, it's a tough time of year, and it's a tough economic environment for everybody right now. So, what are some things that folks can do? I mean, my one thought that comes to my mind is, we've talked a lot about you've cultivated up your collection of affordable, kind of budget bundle cigars. And maybe it's a situation where even if somebody can't buy, let's say, an extra $10 cigar with the three that they've already picked out. Maybe they've picked out three $10 cigars. They've got like $30 and everything like that. Maybe instead of maybe they can't buy that another $10 cigar, make it four, but maybe they can buy an extra, $3 to $5 budget cigar. Make it four cigars, but just tack on a small, a budget cigar.
Yeah, I think just awareness, like you said earlier, of January, February is a slow time. It's like what's going on today is a beautiful thing. We're sitting here, it's kind of nobody was here, and now we got 10 or 12 people sitting in here. One guy's taking a break at lunch. He wants to have a cigar. Another, two or three other guys brought a couple of their friends. People come back this time of year.
Yeah.
You're getting your friends together. Well, let's go to the bar. Let's go here. Let's go there. Well, obviously today people are coming. Hey, let's go to the cigar shop and have a cigar and support the guys. This is wonderful. I'm looking around here too. Pretty crowded lounge right now that just kind of came out of nowhere, and everybody's out. They want to take a break, and in my mind, they kept us in their thoughts and prayers today. And we had even a couple new people said, "I've always been wanting to come in here." So just the presence of mind that after the holidays, we're through with the holidays, that things get a little slower. And if you're looking to hook up with your friend, your college buddy, your work colleague, whatever, you got all these choices. And some of these places don't have seasonal drops. So if you really want to try to throw your dollars at a business that you frequent that would do a lot of good, is just think of going and visiting your friend and meeting at a cigar shop and having a cigar during the January and February. If you do it in August and July, it's very much appreciated, but it's going to make a tremendous impact on there. I mean, when we see people walk in here and like this, I'm very appreciative of all these guys coming here and thinking of us. They could have went to other places, Nick.
Well, and that's, you brought up you said something there that is important, which is that some places don't see seasonal drops. Your corner tavern, your bars and various places like that, the places where people would go and maybe grab a pint or grab some whiskey or something like that.
The old in goodness or in good times are in bad, in sickness or in health. Those places, city taverns do just fine.
They're doing just fine.
Stock market's up, down, whatever.
Doesn't matter. But like with cigar shops, we're talking about, that first quarter of the year tends to be kind of lean. So maybe instead of going to the tavern one night, swing on over to Rivermen or swing on over to your corner brick and mortar cigar shop and have a cigar.
I know it'd be really appreciated by the thousands of us out there that have these kind of things. It helps us plug away and gets us helps us get through these slow months in January, February. And I know it would be very, very. We're appreciative anytime anybody walks in the door, but getting their buddies and coming down on a January or February and throwing a few dollars, not crazy dollars, but just support any way they can. I think if you're looking to impact a business that you frequent and that you support, it surely is appreciated those months.
Well, and word of mouth is super vital. Like you're talking about how there's guys in here that have brought their friends. And I think that, and I've noticed that a little bit in the last couple of months here, is that you've had people that have come in and they've brought a friend with them and they're exposing their friend to this, not just this place, but just the cigar environment in general. And they're kind of bringing new people in. And I think that's really important too, is that if you've got a friend who, maybe the reason your friend is saying, no, I don't want to do that, is not so much that they don't want to do it, is maybe they're just nervous. They've never done it before and, that sort of thing. But, bring a friend, bring somebody along with you because I was kind of a loner. It expands the pie.
Yeah, I mean, when I look back at my 30 years of smoking in the lounge or 25 or whatever, I kind of went in there by myself. Yeah. I would occasionally call, because for me, it was my downtime. It was my way to get away from work, even though I was working there at the lounge as well with my laptop. But I was talking to my fellows. I had a different group of friends and all that. But I think what's happening here today are like, hey, it's the holidays. Let's hook up. I want to catch up with you. There's something I want to talk to you about. And we're kind of in people's plans today. They're like, okay, afternoon, let's come in here. Later on tonight, let's walk in. We got the Mizzou game on. Wearing my Mizzou shirt. We got the Mizzou game on, our bowl game, 5:30. Everybody around the country has their favorite college team hopefully playing in a bowl. There's 42 of them or 44 of them. So there's 80 some odd teams that are playing. So hopefully your team made the bowl season this year. And so we're going to get up for that.
SIU Carbondale rarely makes a bowl game.
I saw offensive tackle on Tuesday night that plays for SIU Carbondale. Walked in the 6'7" guy, and you're going to be hearing more about this fella. But he said they had a good season, and you guys had a pretty good season this year. But so we'll probably get a little different crowd in here tonight. But it's great to see everybody here today. I appreciate everybody coming in.
Sure is. So let's talk about this Opus X. This is the Oro Oscuro. I'm a little down further on it than you are, but you've been doing a lot more talking there. And the smoothness, I just keep coming back to that. The smoothness of the cigar. The little bit of spice to the smoking experience, the little bit of spice.
See you now. Thank you.
To the retrohale, and everything. It's like there's just a quality component to this cigar that it's hard to put into words.
Yeah, I mean, you're not like second guessing this thing like, well, I mean, is this good tobacco or not? Guess what? It's good tobacco.
Oh, yeah.
Is this well blended or not? Guess what? It's well blended. Is this constructed properly? You know what? It is constructed properly. Yeah. I mean, this is kind of like no complaints. I mean, it is it's a rare treat as it's advertised and should be. And the smoothness, I keep going back to that every once in a while, occasionally, very rarely, once every year or a couple of years, I'll get this like really good whiskey or something like that. And probably the biggest compliment I can pay to it is, oh my God, it was so smooth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like this cigar. It's like, this is kind of a what do you think, a medium plus cigar or whatever? But
yeah, I'd say this
but
is
it's smooth.
Plus. It is. It's very smooth.
And I think that's where the extra time, the extra aging, the extra cost went into developing the cigar. And a shout out to the good folks at Arturo Fuente that really blended a masterpiece here. Now, I've been to the Opus X room. I think I mentioned that before when I took my trip with Sierra Cigar back in the day when I was down there in Houston with Ron Lesro. Shout out to Ron, one of the real legends in the cigar business, and sold his stores to Casa Monte Cristo in Houston, 4 of them, I think. And we went down there before that in the 2000s, and I went to the Opus X room, and there's only like 25 people rolling Opus. So anywhere in the world you get an Opus, it came from, at that time, these 25 people.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so rare to get. I was told there are somewhere around 3,000 Arturo Fuente accounts in the U.S.
Okay.
And I think 1 out of 6 get Opus X.
Oh, wow.
So it's so that, what is that, 500 stores or something like that?
Yeah.
So it's not that many people get them. We only get these shipments rarely. Had a guy in here earlier today just said, "Hey, you didn't post this on Instagram," like I was saying earlier.
Yeah. And that's one thing just for folks that are paying attention. They should pay attention to your Instagram because it's kind of a nice little like heads up, like, this is you post like, "Hey, this is shipped," just to let you know this is shipped. So it's kind of giving that heads up like, "Hey, this is on its way. You should be paying attention for this." And then when it arrives, you'll post like, "Hey, we got this," that kind of thing.
And in Rivermen Code, and I've said this before, I try to stay away from dollar signs. I try to stay away from on Instagram. I try to stay away from the prices, the sale, and all that. So I use landing, shipped, or sometimes I'll just post a picture of Opus, which is just kind of a tease.
Yeah.
Not a tease, but a foretelling that something is about to happen. I'm just not going to post a cigar box and then we're not going to carry it, or we're not. If I do, I'll have something in the description below, like I'm smoking a cigar that I haven't ever had before. We're thinking about maybe bringing it in, so it foreshadows. So Cindy, for those of you that are listening to the show, and an Opus lover, hopefully this is a treat for you because now you can call Miss Cindy up and get some cigars shipped your way. Now we put some limits on these cigars because they go so fast.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, and that you're not alone in that. That link that you sent me with the description for the cigar that we're smoking now, they even had a limit.
Yeah, and they're a much bigger operation than we are. So just trying to give everybody the opportunity to smoke something as wonderful. And I guess, this thing could last. I know I'm doing a bit of the talking, but this thing could last forever.
You could definitely get some time out of it. I mean, we've been at it for maybe about 40 minutes or so, and I'm only just now at the halfway point.
And I think you're enjoying yours so much that I think it's hard for you to resist not to take a puff.
It is, and that's why, if you notice, I kind of have a little bit of the pointy going on with the tip there, is that I am smoking it a little too fast in relation to probably how much I should be smoking.
Look at that thing right there.
But it's burnt. Yours is burning perfectly. I mean, the ash on it's holding together. The burn line is good. I mean, look, you can't say anything about the quality of construction on this other than good things. So it's a fantastic smoke.
Congratulations to the people down there. They've just really done an amazing job with this cigar. So it's a real treat to sit here during the holidays and catch up with you and smoke a fine cigar. And isn't that what the holidays are all about? Having a cigar with your friends, catching up.
For sure. Well, why don't we go ahead and get into the United Cigars One Must Go.
We all need to live united, but one must go. Brought to you by United Cigars, makers of La Giana Havana, Abuelo, Red Anchor, Firecracker, and of course, United Cigars. Distributors of Jose Dominguez, Garofalo, Montosa, and Terra Nova, and the highly acclaimed Atabey, Byron, and Bandolero. Buy United, Smoke United, Live United, United Cigars.
So, Dan, I'm going to throw one out to you that I have thrown out to a couple of different people now. And it's always one of those ones that it proves to be a little interesting.
Okay.
So we're going to go. Oh, we are.
Yeah, that's okay. What do you need, Marilee? We're recording right now. You want to put on the headsets?
No.
You want to wave at the camera? Stick your hand around and wave. There you go.
There we go. There she is.
All right.
Do you need him?
No.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Merry Christmas, Marilee. Thank you.
See ya.
That was our world renowned accountant right there, Marilee. She does small business accountant. I'll tell you, if you don't have one, you're gonna get in so much trouble. She's our tax lady. I mean,
and if there's one thing a cigar shop needs to keep up on, it's the taxes.
Oh my God! And she's just constantly doing an amazing job at keeping us out of trouble because I was overwhelmed at how many forms and filings and all that stuff that you got to do when you've got employees and things like that. It's just It's incredible. I worked in consulting, and I was a manager, and I was on the board and all that, but I was never involved with the back of the house kind of stuff. And boy, you got to have a good accountant. So shout out, God bless Mary Lee. I mean, you guys got to meet our accountant. She just does wonderful.
Man, it is
been with us 4 or 5 years.
Busy place coming through here today.
Yeah, everybody.
Too.
Yeah,
everybody.
You never know who's going to walk through that door.
So I've thrown this out to a couple different people, and I'm going to throw it out to you because I always find it to be interesting which way people are going to go. And so one must go. We're going to go with Connecticut. We're going to go with like Habano Sun-Grown, and we're going to go with Maduro. And one must go.
Yeah. Now, is this for personal smoking, or is this? Do I put my shop owner hat on?
Now that's an interesting question.
I don't mean to put a twist in it, but I was just
that's
kind
an
of a clarification.
Question. I mean, I guess it all depends on how you like what's important to you.
I'll answer them both ways.
Would you answer? Oh, okay. I mean, if you want to do it that way, but yeah, I mean, yeah. I think in the past people have gone with their personal preferences.
Yeah. I'll do that.
But I think you're the first retailer I've asked this to, so that does add that little twist to it. So.
Yeah. I think personally I would go with the Sun-Grown. Did you have Sun-Grown in there? Habano Sun-Grown?
Yeah, it was Connecticut, Habano Sun-Grown, and Maduro.
Yeah, I would do personally. I think I would go with the Sun-Grown. I just like that. It's like my palate.
You would keep it, or you would get rid of it?
Oh, I'm sorry. What I would get rid of? I'm
yeah,
sorry.
This is the one that we're getting rid of.
Sorry, United. I think I would get rid of the Maduro.
Really?
Yeah.
And what's your rationale with that? I'm curious.
Let me back up a little bit. If I was answering it from a retailer standpoint, I think I would get rid of the Maduro.
Okay.
If I was answering it from a personal standpoint, I think I would get rid of the Connecticut.
Okay. All right. Well, see, that makes sense. Because obviously Connecticut's are big sellers. So, you don't want to get rid of.
Yeah. And it's a way of introducing new people to the cigar industry.
Yeah.
To the cigar smoking world. You always want to start them out typically on a milder cigar and work up from there. With few exceptions, of course.
I know in the past, I asked the folks from, it was Glenn Loop and Josh Habersky from PCA. I put them on the spot and asked them, and I think they went with Connecticut. I think they got rid of Connecticut's.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember who the other person I asked this to was. And I feel like it was when I had Oliver Nouveau on. I think it was Oliver. I don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think it was Oliver. And I'm pretty sure we went with Maduro's in that one.
Is the one that would be
cut,
voted off the island.
Yeah. For me, I always tend
I think it's a retail. It's maybe it's a question if you're a retailer, you might answer it one way, and if you're just a citizen cigar smoker, you might answer it a different way.
That could be. And as a manufacturer, Oliver, he has to realize, how many Connecticut's he sells maybe versus Maduro's, so maybe it's one of those things that he understands those numbers. But, for me, that Habano Sun-Grown is just a perfect sweet spot of a cigar for me. So that one always has to stay.
Yeah.
And this is one of those questions where, depending upon the day of the week, I could give you either answer.
Yeah.
Lately, I've probably been smoking a little bit heavier cigars than normal. It's that time of year, it's that winter time, when you're eating a little heavier, you're drinking a little heavier, you're not, you're in this case smoking a little heavier, and you're just kind of doing that. And so I if I were to answer, I would probably say that I would let the Connecticut go, which is sad because there are some really great Connecticut cigars out there. But for right now, I'd probably let the Connecticut go. But like I said, you ask me tomorrow, I might tell you the Maduro.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense. That our palates change, but it's a good question. Like you said, you might, depending on what year and what time of day you ask. I mean,
it's true too.
I mean, in the morning, there's a lot of people that swear by having a Connecticut with their coffee in the morning, and they just love that. So I'd hate to have to make that decision for one to go, but I think that's the the nature of the question, right?
That's the
now. When I first answered
nature
it,
of the game.
When I first answered, even though I've listened to the show religiously, I know how the One Must Go works, and I understand the rules and I understand the concept. I still answered the one that I wanted to smoke
You wanted
first.
to keep it,
and I don't know how often does that happen, where everybody listens to it, and like I was just sitting, my mind was telling me One Must Go. I need to vote one off the island, but I was like, I like the sun-grown, so I threw sun-grown out there, and then you corrected me.
It seems like what happens, and Jeff and I, when we do this, and when guests are on and they do it, what seems like happens is you kind of talk through the answer.
Yeah.
You don't just immediately jump in and say, oh, it's this one. And
it's a written answer rather than multiple choice.
It is, and it's one of those things where you kind of like have to talk through it a little bit and talk yourself into finding the answer. You kind of weave through it and you find the answer, that kind of way. And, because we've been doing ones, different foods and traditions and this and that and whatever.
Yeah.
And so you kind of got to talk your way into what that answer is.
And I've heard you convince Jeff into your side, and I've heard Jeff convince you into the other way around, vice versa.
Exactly. Well, and that's exactly it. As you're talking through the answer, suddenly, I might hear something that you say, and it's like, I didn't consider that. This is, and because realistically, as I sit here and say, I would probably cut Connecticut's, because I'm smoking a little heavier. Every once in a while, when I'm driving, I don't necessarily want a Maduro. Like Maduro's, the smoking experience with a Maduro versus a Connecticut is totally different. And, it's just one of those things where I tend to want that smoother smoke sometimes. So I'm even sitting here now questioning my answer of like which one I went.
It's real. I mean, we just throw out an answer, but to be honest with you, we could talk about this all night.
Exactly.
And I could probably come up with 3 different answers. Vanilla, strawberry, or chocolate ice cream. I mean, come on. I mean,
vanilla. I'm getting rid of vanilla.
I'm probably getting rid of chocolate, and maybe I'm the only guy on the planet that's getting rid of chocolate.
See, I love chocolate ice cream. Vanilla's just so dry. It is what it is. It's so boring to me. I tend to go towards the chocolates typically, but then again, there are some really good vanillas out there depending upon where you go. So, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway. Well, that's been the United Cigars One Must Go.
The One Must Go segment was brought to you by United Cigars. United we smoke.
Well, okay, so now that we've gotten that out of the way, why don't we do this?
Guess what, motherfucker?
It's time for 3 cigars that we smoked and enjoyed this week. And my smoking has been less lately. I'm starting to pick it back up, but between time with my son and and everything else,
and the cold weather,
it's been less. So my options right now are a little bit more limited than perhaps they normally would be in terms of things to throw out for this segment. So, do you have one you want to start with there, Dan?
Yeah, it's a limited edition, and we got it in maybe a month ago or so, and it's called the 8th Street Cigar. We got it from Forge, which is a general cigar company that they got a sales group together from Forge, and they've now taken over 101 and put that under their portfolio, Room 101, and maybe they're thinking about bringing on additional cigar companies that now I think they bought Room 101, but I think they're actually talking about doing sales and distribution for other companies that may have an in-house. They went with an in-house post-COVID for a year or two, finding out that they might be able to improve their sales by going to a professional sales force. So I see our guy Johnny's great rep. He comes down from Wisconsin, comes down about 5 times a year. We sit and have it, and I've just seen my humidor grow with Forge stuff because General had, as I understand it, too large of a portfolio for kind of one salesman. So when you're talking about a Cohiba, Macanudo, La Gloria Cubana, you're talking about Bolivar, you're talking about St. Louis Rey, you're talking about all these Partagas, all these iconic. So when a sales rep comes into a small cigar shop like ours, and I mean, you go, okay, we need this many Macanudo, we need this many Cohiba, we need this many Partagas, and you're about done. You kind of have bought out. So they've come up with, I think, a really good idea to bring in kind of two salesmen, one under the Forge umbrella, the other one under the General umbrella. So my General guy comes in and I order all the stuff with him. Then my Forge guy comes in. And every once in a while I get confused. Like I think the General is with the Forge guy or whatever. but it's giving them capacity to maybe bring on more. And they brought on Room 101. They bought the company and now they're distributing that. But there's other large companies that don't have a dedicated sales force that I think you might see them more and more in your shop. So over time. So this A Street is kind of a limited edition, made by the good folks at El Titan de Bronze down in Miami. So it's a more expensive cigar because it's made in the U.S. But El Titan Brown makes the La Polina Goldie and stuff like that. It's a very, very famous small cigar shop that I might have been in on Calle Ocho in Miami. So that's the one I smoked. I really enjoyed it. It's in a smaller ring gauge. Cigar shop owners tend to, and people that work at cigar shops seem to smoke smaller ring gauge, more smaller than our customers, I think, at times. Some reasons we don't pay the same amount of price for them, and there's other reasons
you
as well.
smoke them quicker too. That's I know that's something that Broccoli Rob has mentioned. When he's got people coming in with samples and things of that and whatnot. I mean, he's got to smoke through so many cigars, to keep up, and he likes the smaller ring gauge, smaller length, but then also smaller ring gauge, so that he can theoretically get through maybe more of them in a day than if everybody was giving him Toros. It just takes that much longer to smoke.
Good
that.
point. So that's my first one.
Okay, all right. Do me a favor and just kind of swivel your. It's aimed kind of up a little. There we go. Perfect. All
Thank you.
No problem. My first one, I smoked on Wednesday when I was out doing my newspaper pickup and deliveries. It's one that Jeff gave me, and it's one that we've smoked on the show. And it's one that I'll admit when we initially were going to smoke it, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. And, but he gave it to me, and it was surprisingly good. And I went ahead and I was just in the mood for it. And it was the, where in the heck? Where did my picture go? Hang on. I just forgot what it was. It's the Macanudo, the M by Macanudo, the dark rum, the infused one.
I've had the coffee one. I've never had the rum one.
The rum one is good. It's got a very sweet caramely kind of flavor to it. And, but it smokes really, really well. The only thing that I will say is near the end, it does get a little soft.
Yeah.
So that final third the cigar itself is maybe a little soft.
Yeah.
But flavor-wise on that cigar, it's fantastic, and the smoke output and everything, it's great. I mean, so I had a good time driving and smoking that on Wednesday.
That doesn't surprise me at all. That Macanudo M is an amazing coffee cigar. The one I had the coffee, so the rum doesn't surprise me that you had a similar experience. It's one I tend to forget about. A lot of people come in and want the Java, which we have, the Java coffee, the Java mint, made by Drew Estates for Rocky Patel.
Yeah.
I was told that it's like Java's like 10% of their overall sales in Rocky Patel. It's a huge seller for them.
I could believe it. The Java Mint, that cigar is like if you were to take a Girl Scout Thin Mint cookie and make it into a cigar, that is the Java Mint.
And no BS.
Yeah.
I mean, I know a lot of times we talk about the whatever, get pretty elaborate with the script.
I get raisins on this.
But
blah,
that's
blah,
spot on.
No, I mean, you smell it and your brain goes Thin Mint cookie. And you taste it and you're like, yep, that is chocolatey and minty. It is a Thin Mint cookie.
So if you're
in
your shops around the country and ask for that Macanudo M coffee, mint, maybe there's other flavors. I mean, you can't go wrong. It's a real quality cigar that's I'd say like a real cigar that actually has been infused with a type of technology and process that doesn't make it that soggy, doesn't make it that soft. It smokes like a real one. But, even me, who very rarely, if ever, smokes a flavored cigar, I enjoy those like the really good cigars like that. So that's an excellent one.
Okay. So that was my first one, was the M by Macanudo, the dark rum. So what have you got for number two?
My second one was, Cindy and I were in there kind of, and I think I talked to you about this before. We were in there kind of like trying to merchandise and face the Arturo Fuente boxes. We've got a nice collection of full boxes in there for box buyers to come in and get Arturo Fuente. Took us about a year. And I talked to our rep who you've had on a couple of years ago.
Jake.
And I was asking, Jake, I was like, how do we do this? He goes, Dan, it's going to take about a year. You just got to keep putting orders in, and they're going to come in, and I tell you sometimes, December, maybe the order was put in July or something like that. Well, it finally showed up, and of course you say a little prayer every night that all these past orders don't show up the same day. And Dave's talked at length about that being a big shop, where in his case they'd show up with a tractor trailer. In my case, maybe they'd show up with a third of a UPS truck.
Yeah.
But still
a lot of money.
Proportionally, it's still you're. And so anyway, we built it up. So we're doing, and lo and behold, I had, I don't know, 8 or 10 boxes of Hemingway Signature, which is, we were lucky to get one box, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And one of them said Sun-Grown, and another one said Maduro. And I talked to Cindy, who's been here 18 years. She goes, we've never had a Sun-Grown Hemingway. So I love the Hemingway. It reminds me of my old smoking buddy down in Houston, Mr. Dick. And he was just a great, great man and a friend. And I talked to him for hours and hours at the cigar shop. We really bonded there. And I miss him dearly from being down there in Houston. But he'd always smoked the Hemingway. And so I smoked that Sun-Grown, and it was just absolutely outstanding. I mean, you get the good quality that you get from Hemingway. I was at the Hemingway room, and that visit I told you about, going down to Santiago and seeing our Arturo Fuente factory.
Yeah.
We actually went through the Hemingway room as well. They break their factory up into the Hemingway room, the 8x8, 858 room, the Chateau Fuente room, the Opus room, and they call it a factory within a factory.
Okay.
And they all got different colored pennies on at the time. And when they're doing shift change and stuff, like you see, that's the 858 team, that's this. And depending on how much they're selling, you might have hundreds of rollers doing Chateau Fuente, whereas you might only have 25 doing that in a smaller room. And I guess you get promoted up over time. So I had that Sun-Grown Hemingway. My God, was that great. And to the best of our knowledge, between me and the previous establishment, been in business close to 25 years. And Cindy says she's never seen it show up.
Interesting.
So a rare treat in the middle of just up there doing box merchandising, getting everything faced properly and not turning it this way, but turning it that way, and making sure we had the box price on it, which Dave and Mr. Jonathan always tell all of us more junior retailers in terms of just getting into the business. You got to make sure you do that. So I was making sure we had our box price on there. I was making sure it was faced properly. You could read it. Our guys, when they came in, when Cindy's not here or I'm not here and our guys are working, they don't just walk in there and say, we don't have that box, making sure everything. And lo and behold, I found that Sun-Grown in there. So I smoked that. It was wonderful.
Fantastic. My second one is the one that I actually had out in the ice tent last night during my attempt in -5 / -30 degree temperatures, depending on if you want to account for wind chill or not. But I had the Abuelo by United Cigars, and that's the one that's made by JRE Tobacco.
Yeah,
and I bought a box of those when I was up at Two Guys in September, and I'm still working my way through it. I am on the last level, last row of the box though, and that cigar, it's fantastic. And it has qualities that if you know that it's made by JRE Tobacco, you can look, when you're smoking it, you can tell, okay, this tastes like there are elements to it that you're like, okay, this is a JRE cigar. It has more.
It's trademark.
It's
Corojo.
Habano.
Habano.
He's got a lot of Habano in that one, I think. And but it's just such a great cigar. It just smokes wonderfully, and I always have a great time with it.
That's great. And I know in the spirit of thinking of Jeff here, I'm going to say something that he would say at this particular moment in time. Our show sponsor, JR Tobacco and Aladino.
Exactly.
And thanks, guys.
So your last one?
My last one, I'm going to go with AJ Fernandez.
Okay.
And this is a cigar we actually get from AJ. I know he makes a lot of cigars for a lot of different people. But this is the 5th release from the New World, just like our banner right over there. And I think a lot of people know there was a Connecticut, there was a Cameroon, there's been a Habano, there's a Maduro, and now there's a Dorado. And it's made from his select farm, like a private reserve kind of a thing. I don't know the size of the farm or anything like that, but it's its recent release. And we ended up getting one of each size, and they just flew off the shelf. And we weren't even marketing them. I mean, it was like people, I don't know that a lot of people have heard of it yet or not, but it's a really beautiful gold box. Comes in a 10 count. It's a higher priced cigar, but it's kind of like, I guess it's going to be his marquee cigar in the New World line, more like a celebratory. I think it's $12, $13, $14 a cigar, and a bit more than we pay for a common typical $10 cigar is I think what the average is right now around here with our tobacco tax and all that stuff. So you pay a bit more, but the experience is good. It also looks like it's got more skilled, some of the skilled rollers doing it, because it comes in figurado and different perfecto, different shapes. It's a tight cigar in terms of not necessarily in draw, but in terms of smoking. Like it seems like you can smoke that cigar a lot longer than what it appears to be. They're mostly 5.5 inch cigars, but you're going to get a lot more smoking time out of it than what you. And the flavor is something like I've never tasted from it. You can tell it's kind of an AJ cigar, but yet it's smoother, it's more creamier. There's the right amount of spice. If someone says, I don't really like a lot of spice, I think you can smoke this. If someone says, I like spice, I think you can smoke this. He seems to have threaded the needle and put something in his incredible line of cigars that was missing. One of those things you don't even know was missing until you smoke it. But you're like, oh yeah, this is different. This is AJ. This is very, very good. This is worth the price. I see why he prices it more, probably more aged tobacco from his select farm. It's very good.
Fantastic. And my last one is one that I smoked while I was here the other day, and it's the Perdomo Habano Sun-Grown in the Churchill.
Yeah.
And everybody knows that's one of my go-tos. I don't normally smoke it in the Churchill. I normally go with the Epicure, but you've got the Churchills in there.
Epicure meaning Toro, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, he goes with Epicure instead of the word Toro for his cigars. I'm not entirely.
There's a lot of people that don't like that. I've
sure.
seen the term Epicure used on with other companies, but I'm in the camp where I'm Robusto, Toro, Churchill, Gordo, Corona, Perfecto, Figurado. I'm perfectly okay with everybody using that same nomenclature.
Well, I think it makes it easier to keep track of what's what, but whatever. But no, you have the Churchills in there, and so I smoked one of the Churchills the other day, and I mean, again, it's one of my go-to everyday sticks, and that cigar is just that perfect blend of spice and a little bit of earthiness, and it just burns wonderfully, and I know what I'm getting from it. And when I'm in the mode that I've kind of been in lately, where I don't really have much time to smoke a cigar, so I want to smoke something that I know that I enjoy, I like going to those go-tos so that I know exactly what I'm getting. I don't have to think about it at all, and everything. And so that was one of the ones that I did there, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it.
That's great. When we decided to re-up our game a bit with Perdomo, which was a couple years ago, and I was told we had to bring in at least 4 facings of each of the blends, and then I saw their their stickers that fold out, or their shelf talkers that fold out of the box. The box is closed, it folds out, and then comes perfectly down on the shelf talker. And I saw that thing displayed in our humidor when we laid it out with about 5 or 6 different blends. I see what they're talking about now.
Yeah.
I mean, if we would just have 2 or 3 boxes of this one, it wouldn't have popped the way it does in the humidor, and they wouldn't have gotten the sales. So I'm kind of in agreement with Perdomo with how they've done it and the time they've spent on marketing. It really, I mean, it works out to be the old 3-foot rule, 3 foot of space. So it's 3 or 4 foot wide, and it's, I don't know what it takes up about 5 or 6 shelves, and you just can't miss it when you walk in the humidor.
No, you don't.
And that's one of the companies that we're constantly reordering with every month, religiously. We're always putting in a new order. They got the fresh packs that work out really, really well, and they do it sun-grown Habano and Connecticut, and they're the variety packs. But you could very easily, as a cigar smoker that wants some variety and wants to mix up and wants different kinds of cigars, you could just stay with Perdomo exclusively.
Yeah.
And you would not have to venture off the island at all. I mean, between their Champagne, which I just had the other night, which is amazing, their Maduro, which got, I think, Cigar of the Year with the Authority not that long ago, the Blue Label.
And didn't it?
And maybe Cigar Journal.
I would say, I feel like Cigar Journal maybe gave it Cigar of the Year as well.
And then you got the Bourbon Barrel Age with the 10th anniversary. And then you got the 20th anniversary Sun-Grown up top. And then you get the fresh packs. I mean, we got people that just come in here and religiously buy that. And I'm not just so saying they buy it because they're, even though Nick and their family do a great job, I'm not so sure that they're doing it just because of that. I mean, they're doing it because they realize that they can stay within that brand. And so there's a lot of brand loyalty with Perdomo.
For sure.
And not because of the hype, not because of the marketing, but just because they're making these great cigars with a lot of variety.
For sure. Well, that's been 3 cigars we smoked and enjoyed this week. And now, why don't we go ahead and get this little bit of housekeeping out of the way? This would normally be the time that I give some information about My Monthly Cigars, but I've hired that out this week, so take it away.
My Monthly Cigars is a premium cigar subscription service. It comes in a variety of different size boxes at affordable prices. Use offer code PULPIT and get free shipping on your first box and 20% off any items in the online store at mymonthlycigars.com.
That's offer code PULPIT. Thanks. And then in terms of the socials, Jeff and I, we are available on Instagram at The Cigar Pulpit, as well as at Naked Gator, N-E-K-K-I-D Gator. We're also on Facebook, where we have the Cigar Pulpit Parishioners Group. And guys, there is a lot going on in the Parishioners Group right now. So we have a couple different things. First,
you got a contest.
The poll is up right now to cast your vote for your favorite Christmas carol in the Christmas Carol contest. And so you're going to want to get in on that. I posted the poll, and in the comments, I put a video that has all of the calls put in there in the order in which they were played on the show. And then below that, I have the text of Christian, his entry, because he submitted his entry via email, and I read it, and I butchered it. So this way you can at least read it as it was intended and vote accordingly. So go on over there, cast your vote for your favorite Christmas carol. Also, in the Parishioners Group, we had a listener, Eric. And Eric posted a comment basically saying that he had listened to the show that I did where we discussed the Cigar Aficionado Top 25. And he basically said, since we are in some disagreement about the Cigar Aficionado Top 25, maybe the parishioners should put together their list of top cigars for 2022. And so we are taking nominations for that. I believe the nominating period of time. You know what? When does this episode come out here? Because I'm trying to remember here. You know what? The voting for that, or the nominating for that, may have. I think it ended actually yesterday. But
was it the 22nd? I thought you had. you had written down?
26th.
26th.
So this episode's going to come out on Tuesday the 27th. So the nominating for that ended yesterday. However, you're going to want to go into the group because what's going to happen is we're going to be posting a link, and that'll take you to Nick he's got a private page on his website. It'll just be available for parishioners. You can go in there and it'll have all of the cigars that have been nominated, and you'll be able to pick. I think we're still figuring out the final details. It'll be listed in the post. So don't take what I'm saying. As we're recording it, details are being still finalized. But you're going to vote on, I think, maybe your top 5 of those cigars. I think right now, as we're recording, we maybe have like 14 or 15 cigars that have been nominated. So you're going to vote on your top 5. And then we'll tally up all the votes, and we'll put together the parishioners, top 15 or whatever based on the total number of votes. So
great.
You'll be able to go in there, and it'll be a top list for 2022 for the people, by the people. Or in this case, the parishioners.
I think that's outstanding. I mean, there's so many end of the year lists out there, some good, some bad, some in between. So it'd be great, and I'm real curious to find out how that list ends up.
I am too. I mean, obviously, ideally, it'd be a situation where everybody who votes would have been able to have smoked all 15 cigars that are listed and be able to compare them. But realistically, that may not be the case. So there's going to be some bias, obviously, within the list, but let's be real. There's always bias within these top lists, and so it's something fun. So it's something fun that we're doing in the parishioners group, and so you're going to want to get in on that by going over to Facebook and just joining the Pulpit Parishioners group. And then we're also on Twitter, where I don't really do a whole lot. We're on YouTube, where you can watch this. And then we've got one more Ask the Boys segment coming up on the Friday. That would be Friday the 30th, I believe. Friday the 30th show, where we're going to cap off 2022. So you're going to want to get your calls and questions and all those kind of things in for that by calling the hotline at area code 863-874-0000. Maybe call in with your New Year's resolutions. If you do a New Year's resolution, maybe call in with your New Year's resolution and tell us what that's going to be.
The one you're probably not going to follow through with.
Yeah, more than likely. Yeah. I mean, as it always seems to be for me.
But
anyway,
you go in with good intentions into the new year.
Every year I always say I'm going to lose some weight, and every year I always say I'm going to read a book a week.
Yeah.
And I never
How's it go?
Never read 52 books, and I haven't lost the weight that I want to lose yet either, but it's okay. It's okay. We try. We go in with good intentions. But anyway, get in on that. And then starting in the new year, the Ask the Boys segment will be going to one time a month. I'll still mention the hotline and everything like that, but we're gonna make the Ask the Boys segment one time a month so that we can really bank up some really good quality calls and go at it that way. And then Dan, where can people follow you?
Well, rivermencigars.com website. I don't keep that current because I really don't know how to update it much. But Instagram is the prime way we try to communicate. We're communicating just about everything: events, new deliveries, rare cigars, some industry commentary, whatever. That's all on. A little bit of my life story. I mean, if I go on a trip or whatever, I add that on there just so I'll have kind of a log and an inventory and kind of a diary of what I've been doing, going down to my niece's wedding or something like that. I'll throw a couple pictures. I always try to add some sort of cigar comment in there. And then that rolls over into Facebook, so you stay pretty up to date on that. Not really Twitter, but Instagram and Facebook is where we're. And that's Rivermen Cigars. And
I always mention this. You do the mail order. People can call the shop and place an order and have it shipped to them, assuming they're in a state that allows for that. I know there's like maybe 2 or 3 states that you can. But what's the number for people to call so that they can call in and place an order?
It's 314-843-3355, 314-843-3355. A lot of times Miss Cindy will be on the other line, and we talk quarterly, monthly, whatever, about are we going to get on the internet or whatever and have it easily. And we've kind of found out that little personal touch that we like to do here at the shop, we'd like to extend it to our mail order people. And we got a pretty good, from pulpit listeners and from people that have come to our event and people have come into the shop, we've got a pretty good following of mail order people. And when Cindy calls, she's, hey, how's it going? You know, how did your birth of your third son go? And stuff like that. So there's that personal touch. She also contacts people if they know there's a certain cigar they like and we got it in, like someone's really in love with the Yagua. She'll send them a text and say, hey, the Yagua's just in. So it's kind of working for us doing that. We usually get them out within a day or two. And U.S. Mail has done a pretty good job of shipping them. You get them within 2 or 3 days. We try to, we'll put in a fresh pack in there to make sure the cigars are done well. They've been handpicked. Cindy's an expert at this stuff. She knows it's good before it goes out the door. So we really don't get any complaints regarding our mail order business, and we got a pretty nice loyal following, thanks to you guys and some of the other activities. So we call in, develop a relationship with Cindy. And if you live in an area, there's a guy up in the Adirondacks in New York, calls her every Sunday. She sits there. She's even off on Sunday. She sits there and talks to the guy. He loves you guys. Really has been a huge supporter of us here in the shop, friends with Cindy. And to be honest with you, she's nice to these guys on the phone, and she really likes you guys. I mean, she's talking to me like, hey, guess what? You know, Jeremy just called from Memphis, or I think it's John up in Adirondacks. Yep. And she's sitting here on her day off talking to some of these mail orders. So it really has turned out really, really nice, where there's a relationship that's been transferred over, and so that's how we roll.
Well, it's like Jeff always says, you know, if you don't have a brick and mortar, you can let Rivermen be your brick and mortar. And, you know, that's exactly it. You get that relationship with the employees, you get that relationship with the people, and you kind of have that interpersonal relationship between, you know, consumer and retailer. And like you're pointing out, that can be valuable when these cigars come in and Cindy knows, you know, hey, this guy that I talk to, you know, once every couple of weeks, he's a big Opus guy. We just got in all these Opuses. I better call him and let him know, and blah blah blah, or something like that. You know, it's like you have that retailer that kind of keeps you in mind, and that's a good thing to have.
When the pinks came in, we were fortunate enough to get like 6 boxes of pinks, and so we had the everything from the sophisticated hooker to the work of art. We had them all. And we even got a pink-shirted little Carlito, Where's Carlito bobblehead that we put in there as well. And I posted it the day they arrived, and we had 8 calls that day. Cindy got 8 calls that day, people looking for, you know, these rare pinks that we were going to make sure we got them in the hands of our loyal mail order followers, and also preserve enough of the stock so that people that walked in, our good customers who walked in, would have a shot as well.
That's great.
At this really maybe the most sought-after cigar this year, the Rare Pinks, they were really a hot ticket. I mean, our phone lines blew up over that.
That's great. That's great. Well, Dan, final thoughts on the Opus X Oro Oscuro. I am down to the final third of mine, the Final Third Cigar and Whiskey Lounge out of Ingalls, Indiana.
Absolutely.
Broccoli Rob and Isaiah over there. They're closing out the year. I know they've got a lot of good stuff coming up next year. And like I said, it's not impossible to think that I might be popping over there before this Christmas break is done. It kind of depends on weather, time, and you know, money, but you know, I might. But
I certainly got it on my list to get over there next year. I know the guys have.
He's got his 1-year anniversary party coming up in March.
Yeah,
so.
My brother and I might make it to that, because I've really just wanted to go over there and see those guys and support them. And Rob's been down for our events and see in person all the good work they're doing. Lisa as well, his wife that's involved.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I'll tell you what has been very nice that I've noticed about the Final Third Cigar and Whiskey Lounge is that it seems like the community has really embraced them as well.
Yeah.
The Chamber of Commerce was just over there. I guess they were doing a thing before Christmas, bouncing around to different businesses, highlighting the whole shop local and that sort of thing. And so, like, you've got the president of the Chamber of Commerce doing a video interview with Rob and Lisa talking about, the lounge and that they have gift cards and this and that and gifts and everything. And I think that's really cool because sometimes, the cigar shop maybe is kind of overlooked by the general business community of a community because it's the cigar shop. You go in there and you're going to smell like smoke or something like that, and it's unfortunate because you as a retailer, you're bringing tax dollars and revenue into the community just as much as the clothing store down the street or the cell phone store up the other way. I mean, so it's nice to see a community embracing.
Well, we've been fortunate ourselves here in. I'm glad to hear that about Rob and Lisa's store, but we've been fortunate here ourselves with the wonderful people up at the city of Crestwood, and we were out at the 75th anniversary golf tournament where we set up a table and a tent at one of the holes, and we're passing out cigars, and then we were up for a concert they had there, and I got a call this week from the city clerk that was giving me some ideas of how we could grow and expand our business. I mean,
that's great.
I was shocked. I mean, I wasn't shocked because it came from Crestwood because we have a good relationship and they're really a great host community for us. But they didn't have to do that. They didn't have to call us up here and say, hey, I was just thinking about you guys the other day and I was thinking maybe you can do this or maybe you can do that. And it was very good advice. And it was, almost like, and it came from the municipality, and it was like knowing that you got those guys in your corner is just so critical. Having a solid landlord like we have here is so critical. And those are some of the cornerstones of having any small business. So no, that's absolutely great. Glenn Loop with CRA, him and I talked, a while back and I'd sent him a copy of this book, which was like your third place. So you have your family, you have your work, you have your church, and then maybe you have your coffee shop, or maybe you go up to Crystal's or White Castle and have breakfast in the morning with your buddies from high school or where, or you come to the cigar shop.
Yeah. And
it's like almost everybody needs that because we've moved away so much from community activities like we did when I was younger. I'm 62, but back when I was younger, you would see a lot more community events and things like that. And the cigar shop can certainly play a role. So it's great music to my ears to hear that's happening with Rob and Lisa are tremendous people.
But getting back to the final third of the cigar there, I just tapped out on the Opus X, the Oro Oscuro. And I don't know, you're in the final third now. Seemed to me that the body of the cigar picked up a little bit, got a little bit more heavy than maybe the early portion of the cigar. It felt like the spice level kind of picked up a little bit. I know the spice on the retrohale picked up in the final third, and it just seemed to kind of everything that was there in the beginning. It just kind of seemed to ramp up in the end.
It never really lost its the smoothness or the way it was blent.
You're right.
In the consistency, and it's just a lot of times you talk about getting to that last third, and it might get what do we say? You get tarred up or whatever, where it becomes none of that. I mean, this thing is good to the last puff.
Oh, I was taking it all the way down to where I was going to be burning my fingertips. So I did not want to give it up.
And how long have we been talking? Right
now? This is it's well over an hour. I mean, we're probably nearing an hour and a half.
Yeah.
With that
so
cigar,
here's an hour and a half right here, and still probably have another 20 minutes or so. So
yeah, you've got plenty of time with it.
And I think it raises the point of for those that want a little bit more value out of their stick, if they really hotbox two $10 cigars and they get through it in an hour, they've got $20 into the thing. But if you take a $14, $15 cigar and you slow smoke it for 2 or 2.5 hours, and there's nobody better on the planet than our friend Broccoli
Rob. Yeah,
I mean, you can be smoking a very quality, high-end cigar for less money than you would if you did 2 $8 cigars,
for sure,
or not, or at least the equivalent. And that's something that I know I got to get better at. And because I'm on the show here with you, and I'm talking, and I'm not puffing as often, but I've only had to relight it a couple times, and that was just because I was talking. But this thing basically is staying lit the whole time, and it's really enjoyable. And I don't know if I'll get another one because I want to make sure they're available for other people, because this is a memorable cigar. This is one that is a real treat.
Oh, I very much enjoyed it, and I appreciate you providing it for the show. And if you're not going to get to another one of those, I do have a Christmas gift here. Technically, it's going to be late for the podcast, but it's on time for everybody else. Yes. I do have a Christmas gift here for you of a cigar that you can enjoy and smoke while you're watching the game tonight or something like that.
That's wonderful.
So we have a nice Atabay straight from my trip to Two Guys in September that I've been sitting on there for you. So you have a nice Atabay to enjoy tonight.
Thank you very much, and God bless you, Nick. That's very kind of you. I had my first and only one down at Nashville Cigars when I was coming back from my aunt's wedding with my mom and my brother, and I'd posted some pictures on Instagram again, just kind of documenting my diary of what I'm doing, and it was the first time I had it, and that is really an amazing cigar. And
it is.
And when you're talking about, and if you would consider that to be a Connecticut, and you're talking about voting that one off the island, that'd be a hard one to vote off the island.
You're right.
My Father Connecticut would be a hard one to vote off the island.
It would. Aladino, Connecticut's another one. I mean, you're right, and that's the thing.
To go back and give United Cigar a sponsor another plug, but
but no, you're right. But that's the thing. It's like, when you talk about that question, that is a very difficult question to answer, because you're right. You can think of some really good cigars in all three of those categories that you're like, man, I don't want to get rid of those.
The Macanudo Inspirato at an $8 cigar is an outstanding Connecticut cigar right there, and it's not our father or uncles or grandfather's Connecticut anymore, like a lot of people like to say. It's not my line; it's the line I've used from others, but it's so true in today's day and age. So you can't totally dismiss. That's why that's such a difficult. On the surface, it's not that hard. But then if you start digging down into it, drilling down into it, you can tie yourself up in knots.
You go in the Maduro category, you've got that Perdomo Maduro, that 10th anniversary Maduro that we were just talking about a little bit ago. I mean, it's like you don't want to – there's something good in every category, and so it makes it very difficult when you actually your gut reaction is going to be one thing, but when you actually stop and think about it, you're right. Yeah. It's like suddenly you start realizing just how difficult a question.
And where are you guys at on the downloads? I heard you guys talking about 150,000 or plus north of that the other day. I was wondering if we're going to be able to do a 200,000 download party at some point in March, April of next year. And I don't know if you want to work the math out or something like that, but we'd love to host you guys again for a second annual and get. Maybe we'll see the red jacket again.
I mean, it'd be there we go. It would be nice to do that a second annual.
Teddy, coming up and kind of try to get the band back together for that. Nick?
I mean, right now, as we are recording, as I am looking, we're at 155,600. So
congratulations!
So I mean,
155,000 downloads.
Yeah.
That's and I still contend that not every download is counted. That's just off of one of your counting services, right?
Exactly. I mean, that's
not YouTube. That's not this. That's not that.
Yeah, that does not include YouTube in those numbers and everything. So I mean,
we'd be more than happy and would love and be honored to host you guys again on your tremendous podcast activities again at the 200,000. It sounds like we'll get there. Sometime in 2023 for sure.
Sometime in 2023, you and I will be talking about that because it sounds like we'll.
And we may see the red jacket again then because it only comes out for special events.
It does.
Like the Pulpit Fest at I got over there late, but the Pulpit Fest, I understand when I got there was like a black or a brown jacket on our friend, but I understood the red jacket was out earlier. But there was so much excitement over seeing the red jacket that he actually had to go. Take it back to his car and store it away is what I told him.
He switched up jackets.
It got everybody just so – because that does bring out the animal instincts in people.
Well, and Trey Mac's usually okay with bringing out some animal instincts in people, but it was a lot. So, no, he ended up having to switch jackets. So, anyway. Well, Dan, thank you so much. And, I think if there's one takeaway from this episode that I want everybody to keep in mind, it is that, support your brick and mortar shop during, always support your brick and mortar shop, but definitely keep in mind that the first quarter of the year is usually a rough quarter of the year for your brick and mortars, and any additional assistance you can provide to your brick and mortar, be it buying an extra stick than maybe what you thought you were going to do, maybe, especially telling friends, maybe coordinating a meetup with some of your friends to come and hang out and have a cigar together. Just find ways to support your brick and mortar shops and help them out, because they're providing a space for you to come and smoke and enjoy your cigars in poor weather like we've got today.
Yeah.
And it's an important aspect that you don't want to take for granted.
Well, we appreciate that, Nick, and even if I would add, even some people are looking for that have the ability to work at home. Some people are looking for a place to work. They can't sit out in their backyard anymore.
For sure.
We got a guy that comes in here every day and spends an hour or so, 2 hours, an hour and a half smoking a Robusto cigar, and gives him a chance, and he's over there working a little bit, working on his phone, whatever. Most shops have a place, a workspace that you can just go and spend a few hours. So maybe rather than going to the coffee shop or going to their January, February, you need a place to go. I know these retail shops around the country would appreciate seeing some bodies in their place and helping them out along the way. So that's great. Thanks for the shout out.
Definitely. Well, Dan, I will let you get back to entertaining. We still have a full lounge, and, we got the TV on and everything. So we'll go ahead and wrap this up. And so thank you so much for taking time out.
That's great, Nick. Thanks again. And M-I-Z.
Z-O-U. See? No, it took me a minute because
No, we got the bowl game coming on in 45 minutes.
So you got to remember.
Yeah,
I'm just like,
I know.
I'm sitting there going like, Saluki?
I didn't even respect the response, so that was better than I thought.
There you go. I'm used to hearing the ILL.
But Sam enjoyed his first podcast ever with us.
Well,
so.
yeah, he seems to be nice and relaxed over there, so
Yeah.
that's good. So, all right. Well, guys, this has been another sermon from the Cigar Pulpit. I'm Nick.
I'm Dan.
Everybody stay safe and stay smoky. Everybody's been commenting about how long this music tends to go.
How long does it go? I think it's, is it like a minute?
Nah.
No, I've seen them 4 or 7 minutes sometimes.
This music? The end music?
Well, the stare off at the end.
Oh, I don't think the music quite goes that long. I don't know. You know what? You bring that up. Let me check.
Well, I don't know if the music goes that long, but I think the talking goes that long.
Oh,
after the show eventually ends,
and
sometimes there's another 4 to 7 minutes on YouTube.
Yeah, well, that's true. The extra talking, well, like this now.
Yeah.
The music itself is 38 seconds, but sometimes it just feels so much longer than that.
Yeah,
So-
I think it's the right amount of time. But I never hit end after you say, okay, that's good, we're gone. Then you guys have another 5 or 7 minutes of chit chat.
Exactly. So. All right, Dan, take it easy.
Bye, all.